Welcome back to CIA Declassified. Today we step into the high-stakes world of nuclear counter-proliferation, where a single drawing can end a nation or start a war. The setting is a high-security office within the CIA's Directorate of Operations. It is 1997, and the Clinton administration is terrified of a nuclear-armed Tehran. They don't want to launch a missile. They want to launch a lie. The plan is to poison the well of Iranian science by handing them a gift, one that will explode in their faces, figuratively speaking. But as we'll see, when you play with nuclear fire, everyone gets burned. This is the story of Operation Merlin. How did this operation get its name? The operation was named after the primary human asset, a former Russian nuclear engineer whom the CIA nicknamed Merlin. According to internal accounts, the name was chosen as a wry tip-off by handlers, referencing the legendary wizard to suggest that nothing in the program was actually what it appeared to be. Like a magic trick, the blueprints were designed to be an illusion, real at a glance, but hollow at the core. The goal was simple: trick Iran into spending years and millions building a bomb that would never explode. The agency's counter-proliferation division spent years at a national laboratory designing a fatally flawed version of the TBA-480 fire set, a component critical for triggering a nuclear chain reaction. A quote from the declassified court testimony of the asset, codenamed Merlin. "I noticed that there was something wrong with the drawings. I told them, I'm a professional engineer. I cannot give these to them like this." End quote. Merlin was so concerned about the obvious errors that he actually included a letter to the Iranians pointing out the mistakes, fearing that if he didn't, they would execute him for being a fraud. Operation Merlin was approved by President Bill Clinton and later enthusiastically endorsed by the George W. Bush administration as a centerpiece of their strategy against Tehran. A quote from a declassified 1997 CIA cable: "The ultimate goal of this project is to plant this substantial piece of deception information on the Iranian nuclear weapons program." End quote. Internal CIA documents reveal that the engineers tasked with sabotaging the plans were worried that the flaws were so subtle that an Iranian scientist might actually fix them, inadvertently perfecting the bomb. A quote from former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice during testimony: "This was one of the only levers we had to try to disrupt Iran's nuclear program. It was a very sensitive program." End quote. The agency utilized a front company in Vienna, as they're prone to do, to facilitate the handoff, creating a paper trail that made the Russian scientist look like a desperate rogue agent rather than a CIA asset. A quote from an internal CIA assessment log that's been declassified: "The Iranians would accept these blueprints gladly and follow them to the letter, but would ultimately be disappointed and embarrassed when the device proved to be a dud." End quote. Declassified cables show that the CIA was simultaneously running a similar operation against Iraq, attempting to flood their procurement channels with defective vacuum pumps and precision switches. The FBI was reportedly kept in the dark about Merlin for months, leading to a near disastrous internal investigation when they noticed a Russian scientist receiving large unexplained cash payments. A quote from a declassified report on Iranian nuclear progress: "Expertise and technology gained, even from cooperation that appears strictly civilian in nature, could be used to advance Iran's nuclear weapons research." End quote. Forensic analysis of the declassified blueprints show that the specific flaw involved the timing of the capacitors designed to cause the firing set to melt rather than trigger the explosive lenses. The Operation Merlin files were among the first to be fully digitized in the archives, revealing that the CIA spent over $2 million just on the artwork for the fake schematics. A quote from former CIA agent Ray McGovern: "This was a cockamamie, harebrained scheme developed by covert action operators who had lots of money." End quote. The operation officially ended only after the 2006 publication of State of War. I've never read it, though some documents suggest Merlin-type activities continued under different code names until 2012. In 2026, diplomatic cables that have been declassified suggest that Iran may have used the Merlin incident as a justification to hide their genuine nuclear progress behind a screen of faulty public designs. When we look at the declassified files today, there are huge black holes found in the section titled the Iranian Feedback Assessment. This file contains over 2,000 pages of completely redacted text, the highest volume of censorship in the entire Merlin archive, specifically the section on asset capture signaling, which is missing. Why is the agency hiding what happened after the blueprints were delivered? Get ready for the theory of the second set. Speculation suggests that the Iran crisis of today is the result of a second unsabotaged set of plans. This theory claims the redactions hide the fact that Merlin was actually working for Moscow the whole time, and he replaced the flawed plans with perfect ones before handing them over to ensure a Russian-aligned nuclear power in the East. Some imagine the 2,000 redacted pages are to do with verification logs, hiding a terrifying secret that the CIA didn't sabotage the plans at all. This theory suggests the flaws were a cover story for the American public, and the agency intentionally gave Iran the bomb to create a forever threat that keeps military budgets at record highs in 2026. What if the blueprints contained a cyber vulnerability? A dark whisper suggests the redacted pages detail a hardware Trojan that allowed the CIA to remotely access Iran's internal servers the moment they digitized the blueprints, turning Merlin into a digital spy. Gossip suggests the black bars in the testing site 0 section hide the fact that the CIA successfully detonated a Merlin device in the Nevada desert to prove it would fail, but it actually worked perfectly, proving the agency had lost control of its own sabotage. Theorists looking at the blacked out redactions, particularly in the asset retirement logs, argue that Merlin was disappeared because he discovered the CIA was actually selling the real blueprints to Iran through a back channel while using the sabotaged plans as a public relations distraction. Some believe the 2,000 redacted pages hide a project where the agency used the Merlin plans to track the global black market for nuclear components, using the flawed math as a chemical signature to see who else was buying into the fake science. Speculation persists that the post-delivery section is redacted because it contains proof that the Iranians laughed at the blueprints and sent a thank you note to the CIA, detailing exactly how they fixed the math in under 48 hours. Fringe gossip argues the redacted section describes a plan to re-Merlin the world by releasing flawed AI code to rival nations, hoping to sabotage their technological growth the same way they tried to stall the Iranian bomb. Rumors swirl that the redactions in the Vienna safehouse logs hide evidence of a gunfight between CIA agents and Mossad operatives who tried to stop the delivery, fearing the CIA's plan was too dangerous even if sabotaged. Some imagine the missing pages discuss how the Merlin blueprints were actually meant for a space-based nuclear platform, and the flaw was intended to destroy the reactor while it was in orbit above the United States. A wild theory claims the redacted sections have something to do with DNA records that prove that Merlin wasn't even a Russian engineer, but a genetically engineered clone designed to survive radiation exposure during the transport of materials. Lastly, some whispers suggest the redactions are so heavy because they prove the CIA is still using the Merlin blueprints as a poison pill in 2026, circulating them in secret on the dark web to identify future nuclear aspirants. Was Operation Merlin a success? Tactically, it was a disaster. Most experts and the asset himself believe the operation backfired. By handing over high-end blueprints, the CIA may have accelerated Iran's program by providing a master class in nuclear design, even with the errors. Strategically, it was a blind spot. The operation enabled the Iranians to roll up the CIA's entire network in Tehran, leaving the agency virtually blind for years. It is widely regarded as one of the most boneheaded ideas in modern intelligence. As far as technological and operational breakthroughs go, however, despite the failure, Operation Merlin forced the agency to innovate in dangerous ways. For instance, adversarial design, the creation of functional tech designed to look and feel identical to the real thing. The Legend Protocol, breakthroughs in creating long-term cover stories for defectors that can survive years of scrutiny. Controlled proliferation, a new, albeit controversial, doctrine of feeding the beast to slow it down, and legal shielding. The case of Jeffrey Sterling established new precedents for how the government can prosecute leakers of failed operations. Operation Merlin reminds us that in the world of shadows, the most dangerous gift is the one your enemy gives you for free. As the files reveal, when the wizard fails, it's the rest of the world that feels the burn. Thanks for listening, and join us next time as we examine MK Ultra Subproject 58. In the 1950s, at a major university, the agency funded experiments with sensory deprivation tanks. They wanted to know if they could reset a human personality by stripping away every light, every sound, and every touch for 48 hours. We'll uncover the isolation logs, the personality reconstruction manifest, and the moment the agency realized that when you empty a mind, you never know what thing will move in to fill the void. Join us next time for The Quiet Room. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.